Forces 6 commercial, really cool.
Yeah, it was a cool commercial, actually.
It is. And we begin.
This is the bench clearing, bounce passing, hip checking, ankle breaking from way downtown by a nose thumb sticking show you need to know. Welcome to the Pregame.
Well, that's the sound of hockey season. Thanks for joining us for the Pregame's NHL 16 preview. The Pregame is the official podcast of Boxscore, where sports are always at the tip of your fingers. It's Monday, September 14th, 2015. I'm your host, Colin Perkins, here along with your color commentator, Mr. Philip Stella.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing today, tonight, tomorrow, whenever you listen? Whenever they listen, they might listen tomorrow.
The Pregame is a seasonal podcast dedicated to sports gaming, and we've already made it to hockey season. It seems like hockey season always sneaks out. It's like we're all getting ready for football season. It's finally here. We get a game or two under our belt, and then it's hockey season already. Are you kidding me? Didn't the season
it's crazy. It's crazy because you have the start of football, you have the end of baseball, so you got October and all the magic that goes along with that. And we all know, the beginning of college football and NFL seasons like Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And you shove hockey right in there. It's a great time.
and
the fall.
So it's hard.
The end of summer.
Your attention. You can only split it so many different ways. So, it's a good problem to have. But,
that's true.
It's the fall is jam-packed with sports. So, and it's jam-packed with video game sports. So we've already talked Madden. That's already out there. That's already gotten some good reviews. We did a big preview and review show for you all. And now it's time for a little NHL 16, the only hockey game we get on consoles and not on PC, actually. So this is the big one right here. This is all we get to talk about.
They need to bring that back.
Yeah.
Bring PC back, EA Sports. Bring it back.
Yeah, they had it for a while, didn't they? They still got basketball's on there, but that's not EA. So, anyway, if you're not already part of the Boxscore community, please check us out at boxscoregaming.com or join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Boxscore. Join us to connect with other sports gamers. We're talking all sports games all the time. We mix in some real sports. It's a good time if you're like us. If you enjoy, firing up any of these major sports titles. You don't have to be playing the latest and greatest, but if you like to talk sports games, please hop over. Before we jump into our coverage, let's take a quick second to check in with our hosts. Color commentator Phil, what have you been up to lately in terms of the sports gaming world?
Well, with the sports gaming world, we got the NHL 16 trial. Unfortunately, I have not been able to spend too much time with the trial. I did get a quick game in here before the show so that I would have actual knowledge of what I am speaking about today. Haven't really been into sports gaming right now, Colin. There's a lot of sports on TV.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sports on TV I've been watching, and this stupid game called Destiny is kind of...
Damn Destiny.
Yeah, it's got me still, but... it's a lot of goodness coming out. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I did play the Forza 6 demo, and that is very, very good.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Andrew Treadway in the Boxscore group is I think he bought it, and he's doing the 10 hours. Though it comes out tomorrow, so he's already gotten a bunch under his belt, so he really likes that so far.
Yeah. It was a nice big demo. It gave you a good glimpse of what the game is going to be and what it's going to offer you. And it was very, very gorgeous. So.
Yep, nice. I played just a smidge of that, just one race. I had 15 minutes. I was like, hey, I should fire up the Forza demo. So I played that. I still want to put more time into Forza Horizon 2 before I die. I'll probably get Forza 6 at some point, but I need to get my hours in on Horizon. I bought it and I just have maybe put 20 hours in. That's not nearly enough. So
no, it's a good lineup of games, man.
Oh yeah. It's we're in such a glut right now of good games. So I played some Madden 16, playing some MUT. I have my online franchise with the Madden Unlocked guys, so I've been doing that. They actually just dropped a patch. So if you're playing Madden and you haven't heard, they just dropped a patch that fixes a bunch of the issues that they had with online franchise, well, franchise in general. But those carry through. So if you started the franchise before the patch dropped, you're going to want to probably consider restarting, because there's some there's some drafting issues and some off-season stuff that happens after you play through a season that's just not going to feel right. But they fixed that. So I would highly recommend, if you're in week 6, you can get through another 6 weeks in a couple hours. Just start over, and you'll be a lot happier than being frustrated, once you're through the season. So also played a little NCAA 14. That's going a little bit slower. Everybody's into Madden since Madden just dropped, so we haven't made much progress in that. And then also played the EA Access, my 10 hours trial. I got maybe 4 or 5 hours. I was gone this weekend, so I didn't get to play a whole lot, but I've dabbled in most of the modes. So we can give you a bunch of firsthand experience of the game. Usually we just kind of, before the game comes out, we just kind of read everything we can, but now we can actually talk a little hands-on with you. And then what we'll probably do is do a little quick review like we did with Madden as well. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Before we dive into the rest of the show, just do a couple bits of news. So Pro Evolution. So our next show is actually going to be about soccer, and we get two games. We get Pro Evolution and we get FIFA. So Pro Evo comes out tomorrow, September 15th. Reviews are looking really good, and then FIFA comes out the 22nd. So we get to do our soccer special, and that's one of Phil's specialty. So he's pretty excited for that.
Well, it was until you beat me. Now I don't know. I did download the FIFA 16 demo. I haven't got to play it yet, but I have it downloaded and it's waiting in the queue, in the hopper.
Yep, that's right. Just one of the many, right?
Yeah, this weekend was crazy because not to drag on this, catch up with the host segment, but I had 2 small little child birthdays that I had to go to. So it was shameful that I missed a lot of the football.
Well, it was nice that your Patriots played early, because then you could give up your Sunday to do that, right?
It was good. It was the first week of fantasy, though, so I always like to kind of sit on the couch and watch everything and crack open a nice cold one. But, instead I just fired the football and the soccer ball around at some 10-year-olds. So that was all right.
Nice. Cool. So a couple of other tidbits of news. So you talked about the FIFA demo. Tecmo Super Bowl 2016 has been released. So there's a group of modders, and I'm forgetting the name right now, but check online. There's some people that have been keeping that game alive, and it's fantastic. They keep that core gameplay that you're used to with Tecmo Super Bowl, and they update the rosters every year, and that's been released. So if you haven't seen that, please go check that out. I know it looked like you could download it pretty much on every device available and play it.
Did.
Yeah. So that looks pretty cool. I haven't tried yet, but you can't go wrong with a little Tecmo Super Bowl, that's for sure. Pay up. We haven't played much online. We've been pretty busy, so we haven't done much on the pay up. So we'll just skip right on past that and dive into a little hockey. Phil, tell me about your experiences, like hockey, video games. What do you most fondly remember when it comes to playing hockey on the old system?
Well, I mean, Blades of Steel, of course, is a classic. That game started it all. And it's funny because as a kid, I grew up in Florida. I was born in Massachusetts, but I grew up in Florida. And hockey is big here now, way, way more than it was ever before. So I didn't have a lot of hockey influence down here in sunny Florida. But Blades of Steel, hockey games have always been fun, no matter what. Whether I watched it, cared about it, whatever, the hockey games have been great. Blades of Steel started off, but the one game that I can remember playing for years, just even after it was so dead and should have been buried, was NHL 94. That game was just so good.
Oh yeah, it's on almost everybody's top 10, top 5 list of best sports games of all time. It's crazy.
And it should be because it's that good. But yeah, that got me started. That got me started really heavily into the hockey video games. And from then on, I mean,
what was it about 94 though? Do you remember specifically what made that game so good for you?
I don't, it's funny. There's a whole bunch of things. Just the way the game played. I loved the camera angles that it offered. The injuries were hilarious. Like it looked like the guy just got his head blown off, like in a gunfight. Like it just spread out all over the ice.
Actually, 93 had the blood. They took the blood off of 94.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 90. Okay, well, anyways, what did they do in 94? Was it the same animation? What's that?
It was similar animation. They were like on the ground, like with their legs and arms kind of wiggling,
twitching. Yeah. But still, it was great. 94 was the game, man. I was always the Kings. Always the Kings.
Man. That was the big thing on that game. Once you perfected the one timer, then it was awesome.
Yeah, you could sit in the. I used to sit in the crease all the time, and I used to do the around the net and just hook it right back into the goal. That was a classic move in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you're right though, because 93, 94, and 95, all those NHL games, I had the Sega Genesis. I had every single one of them. And they were all really good.
Yep.
Even 95 was pretty good. After that, it was good. Yeah, that was the series.
Nice, cool, man. So for me, definitely that era. So I live in Minnesota, so it's you can't get away from hockey up here. I didn't play hockey. I played basketball growing up, but all my neighbor kids, all my buddies played and got into ice hockey, the original ice hockey when that came out back on the NES. That game, I bet you that game actually holds up today. I think that would be fun to play a little ice hockey on your phone or whatnot. That'd be a lot of fun. I know that there's Greg Wyshynski on Puck Daddy talks about, because you remember you could pick your lineup. You could pick like the skinny dude, the fat guy, or the medium guy. So what is his? He does skinny, medium, fat. Apparently is like the best choice.
The best lineup.
The best lineup of ice hockey players. So so I remember playing that, Blades of Steel, that NHL series that you were talking about, those early 90s days. Then I actually took a break for quite a while. And I think I got into NCAA football and just kind of left hockey aside, even though I was kind of always keeping an eye on it at the corner of my eye. And then I just recently, over the last 5 or 6 years, got coming back into the series and gotten really heavy into the series. And that's actually what got me into becoming a big hockey fan today, is playing the video game, getting familiar with the game, all the rules, all the players, everything. Mm-hmm. Now I have, partial season tickets to the Wild and everything. It's pretty funny, but the series, it's amazing how far it's come. The basic game of hockey is represented really well in every era, but the games that we have now are just taking everything to that next level of control and feel and the ability to be the general manager or be the player on the ice. It's just hockey.
Oh yeah, it's all over.
Fun. I mean, co-op is really where it's at too. I mean it
works so well with hockey, unlike other sports games. It just works so well.
Because you're in football, if you're playing somebody, you're going up and down, and you kind of you're restricted by that view. Whereas in hockey, you kind of, especially if you're on the same team, and if you're mm-hmm. playing against somebody, it's harder when you couch co-op. But if you're playing the same team, it's nice because you're both going the same direction, and you're both going to start, playing, figuring out where the other guy's going to be on the ice, and you're not restricted by, it back to football where you're like, okay, that play's over. Now you be the receiver this time. Mm-hmm. Go up for a pass. I'll try to hit it to you. It's just one big fluid game. So it makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah, I think the fluidity is what gives it that. Plus, in hockey, there's no out of bounds. Right? It's not like you can. You're all confined to one area. It's fluid. Even if someone's a defenseman, technically they can score and get in on the action. So it's just constant movement and fluidity that couch co-op works so well with.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that with the reintroduction of the EASHL. I always get stumbled up on that. That's a mouthful. But yeah, so actually, why don't we just dive into the game this year? NHL 16. Got a laundry list of new, a laundry list of kind of what's the same. Phil, why don't you kind of go through what they're bringing new to the table this year?
Well, the presentation is, I want to say overall is very similar to NHL 15, but it's the little things that they tweak that are probably going to make the presentation of NHL 16 seem a lot more intricate than what maybe it really is. But I think that's a good thing. You want to start with those little things and build upon that. NHL 15, as we know, was gorgeous. I mean, the game was it was outstanding. So can we improve on player models and things like that? Yeah, I'm not really going to talk about that though, because they sharpened things up, but it's really, they do that every year. It's not really something we need to spend a lot of time on. One thing they worked really hard on in NHL 16 with regards to the presentation and the immersion is the commentary. They really built on that not sounding so robotic and scripted. So they basically did away with a script, and they had everybody just go in and kind of commentate a game, if you will. So yeah, it sounds like it's going to be really well. And, you know, just playing one game out there, you can kind of pick up on that a little bit.
So what did you think,
just from the one?
If you haven't played the new generation game, so the old generation, they're still coming out with 360 and PlayStation 3 games. It's kind of just a roster update at this point. And they typically do that. EA Sports typically kind of drags those older consoles along just a little bit, while as all their effort goes into the new game. So
let them die.
What's unique about the new consoles, the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, is it's actually live action commentators. It's live action. You know, it's not the animated commentators anymore.
Right.
So that's really unique.
And that goes into basically what I'm going to talk about next with that NBC coverage that you have. They basically amp that up to the next level. So they want to make it seem like, and they did a good job in 15 with the whole presentation, the introductions and everything. And it was really good. The announcers are there, like you said, live action. And it was very cool. The graphics, the NBC graphics, they're all, you know, when you score a goal, you're high-fiving your teammates, that would show up. And it was really cool. They amped that up in 2016. Basically, you're going to have arena. What's the word I want to use?
The goal horns, right? And goal songs, right?
Yes, goal songs, goal horns, celebrations from crowd. They're going to have official mascots. So your team's
the chants. Yep.
Yeah, your team's arena is going to sound like it would if you were at the game. It's basically what's going to happen. They're going to have the official introductions, like, you know, in Tampa Bay, they're going to have the Tesla coil going off like crazy and all that kind of stuff. They're going to have Detroit, the octopus is going to come down. And so it's going to be all this crazy stuff.
Well, and that's a hard thing because if you get a bunch of things right on the ice or in any sports game, it's like you get the look of the stadium right, and you get all, you know, the fans in the right jerseys in the stadium. As sports gamers, we always notice what's wrong, right? So it's like, oh, that's not the right goal song, or they don't play that, or
it was generic.
It was generic mascot over there. But it feels like now they pretty much got the entire experience nailed.
Yeah, which is great, because if you're playing for one of those big time teams and you really want that tradition, then that's going to come with NHL 16 in the game. Also, it was confirmed that the broadcast graphics that they debuted in the 2015 NHL Winter Classic are going to be the broadcast graphics in NHL 16. Which basically you'll see right now if you can pick up the trial and play a game. You will see that. And again, like I said, they're going to make improvements to the pregame cutscenes, the goal cutscenes, the cutaways, things like that. So that's all really cool. Adding to the immersion, which is what we want. That's why we play these things. Again, teams are going to use anything they would use at a real life game. And again, you know, I can't express enough that the developers of this actually really wanted you to feel like you're watching an NBC broadcast. So all the improvements they've made, I think, that are going to make a drastic change to the player is in that broadcast and commentary portion of it. Your pregame celebrations, your end of game celebrations, your cutaways, things like that, to make you feel like, yeah, I'm playing in the Garden right now. As you know, I'm on the Bruins and I'm playing in the Garden. I can feel that.
So one of the other cool things that they're adding this year, and maybe I'm jumping the gun, is the playoff beards, and they haven't had that yet.
Damn you, Colin!
Kind of the presentation stuff, right?
If I could show you my screen, it's literally next on the list.
I wasn't sure if you were gonna get there or not. Sorry.
I was totally, and I also want to say that they added back in, and you might talk about this as well, but they added back in the action tracker. And I want to say that goes into presentation because the action tracker is going to track anything that you do on the ice, your passes, your scores, your assists, your big hits, things like that, and you can actually share clips and download clips right from there. So that's going to be really
so
cool.
like at the pause menu, right? So
Yes.
once you play, okay, yep, that's right. They took
So you
that
don't
out.
have to actually go back and watch the instant replays of certain things. They'll actually be saved for you there that you can actually go back and watch those specific events of the game. If you sit there like in FIFA, for instance, or in the NHL games, when the end of the game, it'll kind of show you highlights. You can actually go back and watch these highlights at your own pace, whatever you want to do.
This will be a theme. You'll hear us talk about this quite a bit, but they're adding a lot back into the game that was there in the previous generation, and that's one of them. So
yeah, things that, because NHL 15 was the first of its kind on the new generation of consoles. They had to take a lot of things out. They wanted to be a little safe, and they wanted to make sure the game was actually running properly. And I know people were upset about it. I, for one, was
running properly. They
right.
a bunch out because they focused on how the game, because that's, I mean, we talk about it all the time. That is the most important thing. So it wasn't a popular decision, but if they got everything else right, like all the presentation, all the bells and whistles, but the gameplay, the on the ice gameplay was bad, it would be worse. So
I think it was definitely a have your cake and eat it too type of moment for us. For me, jumping back into the hockey series, for the first time in probably 3 years. It was gorgeous, and I wasn't missing those features because I wasn't a constant, me personally now. I understand why players were, but we have this foundation that EA has built now with 15 that they're going to start adding all this stuff that we want back in, and the game's going to be gorgeous, and it's going to run smoothly as well. So we have a really good foundation with 15. 16 is only going to build on that. And again, we can't state this enough. Playoff beards. Playoff beards. Playoff beards.
Playoff beard. And so did you mess around with the player editor at all?
No, I haven't, but they've added more editing into that. I've seen that you can do the facial hair thing. They've added more faces to, which were in 15 it was really, really generic. It was almost embarrassing how generic it was. So they've added a lot more editing tools to the My Career modes and stuff like that. So that'll be fun. The
cool thing about the playoff beards is you can decide what kind of beard they have in general. Like if you can have the Sidney Crosby scraggly guy, or the Brent Burns really beefy, manly Sasquatch type beard. Yeah,
food beard.
But then you can choose what length they grow it in the playoffs. So during the regular season, you can set it different than the playoffs. It's pretty bizarre.
Playoff beards alone might push somebody to buy this game.
It might. It's fun to see though. I mean, like you said, they're bringing that realism. So, anything else on the presentation you want to cover off on?
That's all I'm covering off on today. If I come across anything that really sticks, those were the differences that stuck out to me. If you guys want to hear anything different, please let me know. If you have questions, you always know you can let me or Colin know, and we'll go out and do the research for you. And we can post it in Boxscore Gaming. If you want to send us your email, we'll email you. I mean, we're here to work for you guys. So if you have any more questions on the presentation, this game comes out tomorrow. So, you can see for yourself if you're going to be a day one purchaser. If not, let us know. We'll look it up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so a couple of other new things that we'll kind of cover off on this stuff here in the upcoming. So they brought EASHL back. Phil's going to talk about that a little later. In the franchise mode, the biggest change is they have player morale, and it's another kind of layer for you to manage and feel like a real general manager in professional hockey. Be a pro. They've added some improvements to that. One is sim to the next shift, which they didn't have before. So that will make it a lot better. They've added a new layer of XP and how your player gets better and whatnot over the course of your seasons. And they added, so actually might want to start here. One of the cool things to dive into is they finally added a practice mode. They haven't added practice mode since I've been playing the game. And they have this on ice visual trainer. So why don't we dive into this a little bit, Phil? So the practice mode is cool. So when you, it's a standalone mode where you can just go in and practice like a 5-on-5 rush or, a breakout pass. So those are welcome because before all you could do was a one-on-one, you're a skater against the goalie. And that's cool to a degree. You can practice, shootout scenarios, but it's not super helpful when you're trying to figure out the game outside of a real game. So that layer is pretty cool. And then they've added this visual on ice trainer, which is to help newer people mostly to the game know kind of what to do on defense, if they should try a stick lift. It has as you're skating back on defense, you'll have the button to push and what that button's going to do as a recommendation to the player. And they also, so they'll tell you kind of where you should pass it. It has a little visual icon, a little
check mark system kind of over.
Oh yeah, the check mark, and that's kind of based off, I think, how well you pulled it off. So if you did a really good job on that pass, or if you did a really good job on,
they give you an A for that. Move along.
Right, exactly. A little pat in the butt. Yeah. So what did you think about how they pulled that off?
I found it to be, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before the show, I found it to be pretty intrusive to the visuals. Now, and I also mentioned that I only played one game so far of NHL 16, so this was something I wasn't used to that from the 15.
It's a brand new, yeah. Also, there's a lot going on, right? Like you're just used to and the little icon.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There, you've got the icon which is like a newer icon to symbolize who you're selecting or who's highlighted, and then there's this little checkbox kind of next to it. Take a shot, pass, whatever it wants you to do, because it's kind of like a little grading system, which I like. But it's just when you jumped into the game and you kind of weren't ready for that, I guess. You have like this shot cone and a pass cone, and it'll tell you, okay. It'll tell you without telling you, like, hey, this isn't going to get through because, there's two defensemen in the way, or, the goalie's got this angled covered, so you want to try and take the shot over here. And it was just so much going on the screen that it really threw me off. I'm like, what is this? I'm trying to play in hockey games. It's not like we're sitting here and we're calling the play and I can kind of like get my bearings. I mean, it's just fast,
Because it's so fluid, like we were talking about earlier. It's not like football where you're like, okay, I have a second to think. Let's check it out. What's going on? Okay, let me see the play. Whereas hockey, it's just everything. Everybody's going.
Yeah, if you get the puck and you're standing there, you're going to get pasted. I mean, I was like, what is this line telling me? And the manual passing was a little weird because you have to hold the trigger down and then kind of shift your joystick to the guy you want to pass it to, which is normally what you'd have to do. But it kind of gives you, it's like three different arrows on the screen. Yeah. So you're like, wait, there's like a blue arrow here, a red arrow, and then a green arrow. And like, oh, I don't like which. Maybe pass it to the green arrow. It's, and then I actually took that off, and I was skating towards the blue line, and I had a winger on the right hand side, and I kind of just wanted to pass it over to him. And he was about to cross the blue line. I didn't want to get off sides, and I had taken the manual passing off, and he just shoves it ahead for icing. I'm like, what are you doing? Like. So it was kind of either way. But I think I would get used to the on ice trainer, but I think once I got used to that, I would take it off because I just wouldn't want all of that. But I could see how that would help a new person, but also confuse somebody that was new.
I'll have to play with it. So it's dynamic. So
yes, it's not on the screen all the time.
Well, yeah, it's not on the screen all the time, but I think it's dynamic based on your skill. So if the computer realizes that you're a skilled player, it's going to dial that stuff back a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. I haven't played with everything yet. One thing that I really liked was the little bullseye in the goal. So it'll show you where you're aiming, and that's one of the hard things to get used to in the hockey games is kind of, okay, wait a minute, what does this stick do? Oh, this is where I'm aiming. Okay. Like I remember it took me a long time to figure out, and you still would forget, like, oh, I'm just going to always aim to the right corner because I know that's a viable option.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of practice to say, okay, I can see where the goalie is. He's leaning
Just go
this
high
way.
stick side. You're
High.
fine.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then after a while, if you're used to that, then all of a sudden you forget that the 5 hole's an option. So I kind of like having that up there. The true test will be tomorrow night. I'm playing with Mike Wickman. We've been playing hockey for since I've been back into it. We've been playing the game. So it'll be interesting to see what he thinks about it. I'm guessing he won't like it, but we'll see. I don't mind it, and I think I'll probably turn it off eventually. But I think it's a cool addition for the newer players because it's just a lot to take in, and the game moves so fast. It's hard to. You almost have to kind of perfect. Okay, I'm just going to perfect passing, for a couple of games, and now I'm going to try to figure out how to shoot to the top corner, all that sort of thing. So I think having all that stuff will help kind of your brain subliminally figure out how they intend for you to play the game. So we'll see. That was one of the cool additions. Well, cool. It was one of the additions. We'll see. We're split on it, so we'll see how that goes. We'll let Mike Wickman be the deciding judge.
We got some chatter going on in the chat, Colin, just to kind of fill you in.
Yeah.
Pestilence 11 was saying that 94 still hasn't been topped.
Sure.
And he's saying also the fluidity of the game seems to be a big improvement from 15, the most noticeable. Crowd is still quiet, and he also...
I noticed that too.
And there's still no 5-man goal celebrations.
Yes, I did read that they have that on the list because that happens. I mean, that's usually what happens when you score a goal in the NHL. You get all guys together. And you get
the team. Yes.
That's the best. I love that. And so, yeah, I think they'll probably add that next year, I'm guessing. But that will be nice to see. And I'm not a big personally, I'm not a big celebration guy. So like I always forget, like I'm just happy I scored. And I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna hit this button because I know it does something. Whereas James, who was on our Madden series, he always does, something fancy to rub it in after he scores on you. So I've never been a celebration guy in video games.
He's also saying the commentating still feels pretty recycled from 15. Yeah. Again, Pestilence, I haven't played enough. Personally, I haven't played enough. Just giving you my take on what I've been reading about the commentating. The game drops tomorrow. We'll see once we get some more time with it to spend. If you want to drop in the chat how long you've been playing, just so we can get a sense if you've been playing a good little bit. You might know better than us. But again, EA said they were going to make it a little bit more dynamic and unscripted.
One of the things that the kind of the inflection. So Doc last year felt kind of just monotone, and if you watch a real a game that he announces, he's all over the place and he's having a lot of fun with it. So I think that's one of the things that they tried to bring into this game is the real excitement that he brings to the real games, and that the different inflections when they're going in for a goal and when something crazy happens. So we'll see. I've only got a couple games under my belt, so it's hard for me to comment.
So Just Win is also asking, have you noticed, now you've played more games than me. Like I said, I've only played one. I didn't have a problem checking with the forwards, but he wants to know if you've had an issue checking with the forwards. Does it seem more difficult to do? Have you noticed?
I'm not a big checker to begin with, so I'm usually behind on my body checking. It's usually tilted towards the computer, so I'll have to spend more time with that to let you know. Okay. I know that they in the EASHL they made it so certain player types are the ones that can do certain things. So you have more of a two-way forward. He's the guy that's going to get bigger checks than more of your playmaker. So
yeah, it might be what he's referring to because he has some other questions in the EASH. I can't even say it.
Yeah, EAS.
Yeah. Yeah, EASCHL 856. Well, we'll get into that. His other questions here. It's about player progression and how they took that out.
Yes, yeah, that's got a little point.
And there's a lot of conflicting opinions on that. Some like it, some don't. So.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't we dive in really quick to I'll go through the list of what's the same. So we've talked about a couple of the new things. The things that are the same. The menus are pretty much the same. The music in the background's the same. They haven't really added much to the present. So the presentation that you talked about was a presentation kind of in the game, on the ice, all that sort of stuff. Outside of that, the presentation feels pretty much the exact same, which I'm disappointed with. I know they only have so many people and so much time, but I was really hoping that they would bring a little bit more, I don't know, excitement. Like the Madden does a really good job with that. And the NBA series does a really good job with that, making you feel good. Like they have a video, the NBA series has a video playing in the background, talking to you about basketball and little side videos, whereas hockey is just like this kind of cute little music in the background that's kind of gets you moving along, you're trying to, the way the menus are laid out is fine, but it's not, I don't know. I feel like they could do better. So don't expect anything new from there. NHL moments are the exact same. Doesn't look like you get any hut coins for playing those games. Season mode's going to be pretty much the exact same. Playoff mode's the exact same. Online team play and online versus.
Except for the beards.
Except for the beards, right? Exactly. But those core modes, those core modes are there, but they're pretty much the same. In terms of gameplay improvements, so some of the things that they've added are the way that the goalies react in the crease. So what you can do as a controller. So now that they've added the new EASHL mode back in, you're going to get a lot more manual goalies in there. So they've done some new. I know they used Eddie Lack to do some new animations. They've honed the controls, so the goalies are going to feel a lot better to control this year. One of the big things that they added was precision, what they're calling precision skating.
What they're calling
precision skating. It's all marketing.
Yeah, I know.
So your skate. What they listed off, they say strafing, poke checks, stick checks, body checking, and defensive interceptions are all going to feel better. So really, what you're gonna and I did feel like I felt like I had more control of my player on the ice this year. I played a lot of 15. I played a lot of the previous year's games, but it feels a lot tighter. The hockey has to feel a little floaty because you're on ice, but it feels like they've really perfected how you're kind of moving your legs around to kind of get your balance underneath you, and it feels like you can take off when you actually want to take off, and you're not doing those weird things where your player's backing up and you're trying to move, go back to the other direction, and all of a sudden they do like a weird spin thing. Feels like they spent a lot of time perfecting that. So the on the ice gameplay, the way that your players feel, the way that they check, the way that they pass. So another thing that they added was seamless puck pickups. So instead of going into an animation once you're getting a pass, it's actually going to kind of flow together a lot more seamlessly. So that feels a lot better. They say it's better, and it actually is better. So in my experience with the game so far, they've done a good job with that. And then
my one game, it felt better.
Yeah. And then the on ice visual trainer, which we've already talked about, is kind of a new gameplay improvement. So yeah, anything else that you've noticed? I mean, I really felt like I had a little more control of my players. That felt a lot better. I need to spend more time with the game in general to have a find those little nitpicky things. But overall, it's quite a step up from last year.
Yeah, I'd say that the biggest takeaway for me, just in the feel, with the precision skating, I did have a little bit more control of my offensive players than I'm used to. Again, you've played against me 6 times. I'm not a great hockey player. I don't really play online so much, but yeah, I felt like I had more control, and definitely the puck work and the puck pickup and everything was better for sure, which is something I think they've been working on across the board in your NBA Live and your FIFA too, the way that happens. One thing I did notice though is I like to poke check, as do you. And I got probably 4 to 5 tripping calls. It wasn't even close. Whereas NHL 15, I didn't get that many. You know, the blatant obvious ones where I was way behind him. But I mean, you know, here I am like poke checking, and I'm side by side with the guy, you know, and I'm trying to poke check the puck, and it's a tripping call, and I was like, man, and I don't know if that's been tuned up and it's more sensitive. To what they had last year.
I'm guessing, and I think I did read about this somewhere. They're doing that because now that they have the online, the EASHL, people just spam that poke check, and I think they're trying to make it so it's more of either it's not as effective, or it's gonna, if you keep doing it, you're gonna get a penalty for doing it. So hopefully that will help with I don't know, people just taking advantage of that stick poke check.
You know? Yeah, there should be a line there because you know, I use it a lot too. So
one thing that they actually haven't added back in, at least I haven't tried it this year, is you used to be able to wave your stick back and forth, which was great.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they're adding that back in or not. I'll have to double check. But that was another, at least something you could do besides poke at the check, is just kind of do that to hopefully, you know, knock a pass, knock a pass away from the
yeah. I almost never use the stick lift. I'm always just, even during the passing, I'm always just trying to poke check at it, and they probably clean that up in this version where you'd want to do the stick lift instead.
The stick lift,
or the block the pass maneuver.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where you dive on the ice. We call the stick lift the penalty button, because usually
it's pretty much
lift, it's a stick to the face. It's 2 minutes.
Sometimes you just got to get a stick to the face.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Why don't we dive into the modes? I already talked about kind of everything that's the same. I'll talk a little bit about HUT, and then we'll talk about EASHL. It seems like to me, I know there's been a lot of complaints in the sports gaming community about the lack of emphasis on the BAGM and kind of the Be a Pro modes in a lot of the sports games, and they're focusing more on the online and especially Ultimate Team. To me now, that's actually where I want to spend most of my time. I've done be a GM forever in all these games, and I've always, you know, bring my team to the Stanley Cup, bring my team to the Super Bowl, bring my team to the national championship every year. It's great to have that as an option, but I really like the fantasy aspect of HUT now, so that's really where I'm going to spend more of my time now. I'm not the guy that pays for the packs. I think I did one year. I spent maybe like $10 or $15, and I just felt kind of gross. So I decided
I felt dirty.
Exactly. And I know people do it, and that's because they spend so much time in the game. So you know, I don't judge anybody that does buy their packs with the real money. I get it, but I just I'd rather just do the grind. You know, some people don't want to do the grind. I'm okay with the grind, especially I like that slow progression and mixing and matching and all that stuff. I don't necessarily want a super team right out of the gate. I want to be able to kind of earn it over time. So yeah, so HUT's pretty much the same. Not a whole lot of changes. They did add a single player seasons mode, which will be where I spend most of my time as I'm kind of getting my team up to par. They do have pre-order bonuses. So if you pre-ordered, you're going to get a pack or two, I think, every week for, I forget if it's 16 weeks or whatnot, but you're going to get those good players just kind of automatically. But now you have the option to go on a single player instead of just jumping online and getting slaughtered by someone that actually did, you know, buy all the packs and buy their team. Now you can slowly build your team up through a couple of different single player seasons. So it looked like there was 4 different levels. I'm forgetting the names that they use, but you can start kind of at the lower level where you're playing against pretty much all AHL, CHL type guys, and then slowly kind of step up as your core team is getting better, and you can compete against the better team. So you don't have to start at the bottom. The lower level starts on rookie level. So if you're an experienced hockey player, NHL player, you probably don't want to start there. That was the first a couple games that I played, and it was pretty easy. So if you're new to the game, start there. If not, probably try to start a couple levels up. And I think there are some restrictions, so you may have to check if you have to have like a certain, you know, like if your team has to be 75 overall to compete first. But for the most part, HUT's the same. But HUT's fun, man. I mean, I really enjoy it. You know, the progression, the different levels. I like how they tier you. So you have to get up to, you start at the bottom level. I think it was like tier 10 or 11 last year. And as you get better, as you win more games, you move to the next tier, and then you're playing only players in that tier. So it encourages the better players to keep playing and to get better competition, and people that need a little bit more work, maybe their team's not as good, maybe they're not as skilled, you're going to be playing with people that are about their same level.
Cool.
So have you dove into...
I like that there's a single player mode. I would definitely jump into that just to get my feet wet with that, because I haven't touched the MUT, the FUT, I guess you want to call it,
for FIFA.
Yeah, I haven't touched any of that because, again, I'm not a big online sports gamer. I would like to be. Now we've got the community to do it for sure, and that will happen more for me in the next coming years as these games offer all of these different modes to do it with ease. So I'm definitely looking forward to giving that a shot, and I actually might spend my entire trial period doing that just to get a really good sense of what it's like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would recommend that. Are there any questions before I move on to EASHL?
Not really so much in the chat about the HUT. Just when it is asking, if you're going to be playing mostly HUT this year, and if I'm mostly going to be into the pro mode. Probably from what you were explaining, and you can tell him, but or her, that it sounds that way. It sounds like you might be spending more time, and I know you've been doing it with the MUT a lot too. So
Yep. Yeah. So I'll talk about be a GM, and then I'll kind of give you my take on where I'm going to be spending most of my time in a little bit. Why don't you dive into a little EASHL? Give me a break. I'll go on to GM.
Yeah, you've been talking for a while, and hopefully I get enough information in here. And if the guys in the chat, obviously they're playing a lot of the EASHL, can help me out, because I've never been big into this mode. And again, I just started playing hockey again last year after a while. So this is kind of a weak point for me. But apparently from what I've been reading and what I've been researching, it's very much similar to what it was before they took it out. They've gotten rid of...
So Phil, this is something you could focus on because you're, you're an FPS guy and you kind of understand balance. I think that's one of the things that they're really trying to bring into the EASHL this year.
Yes.
The old format, and I don't know if you're going to cover this, but the old format, the way that the player progression system worked, it was hard for a new player to jump in because it wasn't balanced very well. So maybe you kind of take it at that angle.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been reading about. And again, like just when it was talking about it, the ability to tweak your player's height, weight, skill rankings, and all that kind of stuff is gone. Instead, you choose from archetypes. So you're going to be, a sharpshooter, or you're going to be a bruiser, and you're going to play that way.
Your attributes are going to be assigned accordingly. Right. So I guess before, the big problem was you basically could be Zdeno Chara, but Patrick Kane at the same time. You can't so they kind of wanted to get rid of that, because it was just kind of, you were just OP at that point. You can't do anything. So they did do a lot of the balancing, but again, you taking that out, a lot of people are a little upset about that, not having that progression. The nice thing, though, is that every class that you pick is going to feel differently. So the longevity of the playability, speaking to the longevity of this mode, might increase if you want to try the different classes. So for me, if you play a class and you're playing it and you're like, okay, you want to try a different class, you want to try a defender or something like that, that's got a totally different archetype and stat across the board, it's going to be a whole different experience for you. That might be good, that might be bad. I'm not sure how that would depend on the player there. So one of the cool things that I read about is they had a bunch of, I'm forgetting the term they used, but they had a bunch of actual EASHL, just any hockey fans that love the game. They brought in a bunch of people to help them tweak this year's version of the game. So that's one of the big feedback points that they got from the actual community, actual people coming into the studio, helping the developers, talking to them about okay, here's the different types, instead of the off balanced, the super players and super teams that we used to have. Now let's kind of go to this. The community's ready for more of a kind of a FPS, or type balancing system where, okay, you're gonna pick, for back to the FPS, you're gonna pick this type of gun and this ability, and you're gonna go out there, buddy, and you're gonna do your best. So it's a hockey similar. It's like you're gonna have this type of body. You're gonna be a playmaker. You're gonna be a pass really well, but you're gonna get smoked by some two-way forward or a defensive defenseman. He's gonna come by,
That's
gonna end you.
yeah.
But you're gonna have the chance to kind of skate around him and make a big pass, and try to lure him in, get him out of position, lure that pass, and then score a goal.
Yeah, I that's kind of what I was reading about, is if you're a sharpshooter, you're going to have a nasty shot, but you're going to get run over. You're not going to be able to stand there and defend too much. Which I don't know. I guess it would teach you how to play different ways. So I can see the good points of it, but also, if you were a huge fan of this mode before and you really enjoyed the player progression part of it, I could see where that would really bring you down as well. So it has its good points. It has its bad points. It's kind of going to be up to that specific player to decide. Just when it is saying that the player models aren't bad, it's just that the no progression does bother him.
So did you read about the badges at all that they added in?
I've not read about the badges. No.
So they just added that in. So I think that player progression, I think they're listening to the community say, hey, we want to feel like we've earned something, in this mode. So they're adding in badges. I don't know all the details, but I do know that there's some sort of a system. I think it's just a visual system, but it gives you credit for
like a medal or something.
Yeah, like a medal.
Okay.
So essentially, you can do a quick glance at the people that you're playing with or playing against and say, oh, this guy's played a lot because he's got this badge and this badge and this badge and whatnot. So they are rewarding players in that way. They're just not making their actual avatar skater any better than everybody else.
Okay. Yeah. And from what I hear from a lot of the beta testers of this mode from before, and now we can speak to that because the game's here, basically, is the infrastructure of the mode seemed kind of sparse. So I didn't get too much details on why it seemed a little sparse, but just the menu system and infrastructure of the entire mode seemed to be lacking a little bit.
Yeah, I spent some time with the beta, so I can see you just kind of jumped in and you could you played with your team, and there wasn't. I don't think they had anything in place in terms of like a season or whatnot yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know? Did they? I'm guessing they added some sort of some season. Did you read about that?
I haven't, and I haven't jumped into the actual mode to actually figure that out. And maybe just wondered if you want to speak to that in our class. How does that infrastructure of the mode feel? Is there a season that you can jump into now? Did they add that in? Also wanted to say that finding a team in this mode seems to be pretty easy, as it always has been. You can still build your own team, name your team. Unlike the basketball, you can choose from kind of a list of jersey, like sweaters you want to wear, but they're not customizable. So they have a list that you can choose from to create, but that's pretty much it. You can't actually create your own sweater, which would be awesome if you could do that. Like attach a logo. Maybe they have a pool of logos that you can kind of mix and match with. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, basketball looks like they really nailed that this year. So hopefully, again, I just get the feeling that the hockey, the development team behind the NHL series is just not very robust for whatever reason. It's not as popular.
It seems that they're always playing catch up to the other franchises.
So they're focusing on the things that are the most important, which is really, on the ice stuff. And the last generation of the hockey series got so good because they kept adding another sweet layer on top of what was already a good game, and they had 7, 8, 9 years to get to that point where I thought NHL's 13 to me was the pinnacle of those games because they kept adding those layers, kept adding those layers. So it's going to take a little while to get all of that stuff that we want just because of the size of the development team. And, they only have 9 or so months to really figure out what they want to add into the game for the next iteration. So I'm confident they're going to get there, but in the meantime, I think we just have to enjoy what we have, and I think we do have a really solid hockey game with what they're putting out. They could do more, yes, but I think on the ice is
it's going to get better. Like I said, and it seems like they're playing a little bit of catch up. And just one last thing about the EASHL, there still is no spectator mode or game log while you're waiting to join.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
So that hurts because, am I okay? What am I waiting for? How long am I going to be waiting? Like, give me something. Give me a spectator mode of the game going on, or even a log. Just a simple description of what's happening, what period is it, what time in the period, that kind of thing. And I'll just answer a few questions in the chat here before we move on. So just when my question to you was, how does the infrastructure of the EASHL mode feel? Is there a season that you can jump into? Or basically, I was reading that the the menu system seemed sparse for that game mode. If you could just speak to that, if you found that to be true or false. And again, about the player progression, EA just felt like they wanted to balance that. And I don't know that it was necessarily a lazy approach for them to get rid of it. I just think that they wanted to kind of set a class, have you play that class. You're going to have those attributes. Like Colin said, I just think they wanted to basically balance it out so that there wasn't, these 99s just skating around doing whatever they wanted to do. They wanted to actually get you to feel the game a little bit more, I think, and learn how to play the game as the class that you were choosing. So I think that's about it. And if we want to move on, Colin.
Okay, cool. I'll pull up the chat here, see if I can kind of chime into any of these questions.
Oh, I missed a question. He wanted to see if there were contracts in HUT and also injuries. I don't know if you've experienced that yet.
There are contracts. I saw a bunch of contract cards. I didn't see an injury card yet. I only played a couple games, so I didn't see any injuries. That was one of the things I didn't really like about HUD. It just seemed like a layer that they didn't really need. The contracts is okay. In Madden, I know they've essentially taken contracts out of it. Like you have no problem getting contracts for players in Madden. At least I haven't yet. I did the pre-order bonus, so maybe that's part of it. But it seems like they're taking the emphasis on that out of it a little bit more. So yes, they have contracts. I have to double check on injuries.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Let's dive into a little GM. We're running a little long, so we should probably get through these and then wrap it up. So the other two modes that are staple and that they focused on are be a GM and be a pro. So be a GM is pretty much the same. They added a couple new things. Player morale is one of the layers, kind of the management layers that they added this year. So I don't personally. It might drive me away from playing be a GM because I just don't want to deal with it. I don't know if I can turn it off or not. I just want to kind of do my, I could do a season, right? But then it's only one season. Then I could be a GM, but now I'm like all of a sudden managing these make-believe egos and all these sorts of things. So what it is players react based off how well they're doing during the season, which they really do, which is great. And if some people want that layer of management, but for me, I just kind of want to play out the season, see if I can, take maybe a lower level team or take my Wild to the playoffs, try to win the Stanley Cup. If I don't, okay, let's do this and this and this in the offseason, try to get that skill level up, see how good my younger players get into the next season, and let's go again. Whereas now you're kind of forced to use this morale system where you actually have team meetings. So I did mess around with this a little bit. I held a team meeting after one of my first preseason games, and it gives you like 4 or 5 options of something to say to the team. And the option that I chose, I forget what I chose. Like
Choose wisely.
Five players, it boosted their morale. Everyone else hated it. Everyone on my team just hated me for saying that.
Fuck this guy. He sucks.
So it's like, oh God, I really have to like, and it does actually have every player apparently, and I need to dive in more to see if I can figure out where this is, if it's an attribute or how to figure it out. But every player actually has a different personality. So if you say one thing to one player, it's going to mean that's good to him. But if you say the same thing to a different player, it's actually going to lower his morale. And that morale, how high or low it is going to actually affect your overall rating. So if you have if you have Sid the Kid on your team and he's got really low morale, he's not going to play like Sid the Kid does. So yeah,
it's a big pansy.
Well, he's kind of a pansy, but he's just not going to play as skilled as he normally does. So
there's no Penguins fans out there listening. They're pissed.
I think they know.
They do. They should.
He's an amazing player. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, he's fantastic, and I would love him on my team. So so the morale thing is going to be a little weird. I'm going to mess around with it. I'll try to get through it. It might be something I can just ignore, and it's not going to really affect it that much. Affect what I do. Certain players. Oh, so one of the other things is I signed a player. I need another kind of like a seventh defenseman because I don't like Nate Prosser, and I signed him and I went and checked his morale, and his morale went down because he was nervous playing for a new team. So it's like, that's kind of cool, right? But do I really want to deal with that sort of thing? I don't know.
I mean, it's cool that they added another layer into that. But I do see how sometimes in the be a GM mode, it's a lot. Like if you're scouting and if you're going through all the if you actually do all that, man, that would take you forever to get through a season. I mean, that's a lot of stuff.
You're spending a lot of time in menus.
Yeah. And you really, there's not like cool animations for any of that stuff. I don't think. I don't.
No, I mean, they have smiley faces and up arrows and down arrows and that sort of thing. So you're just going to spend a lot of time in menus, and that is one of the cool things that they have. And I think I'm trying to remember, they did have it last year, whereas you can simulate a game and you can kind of see what's going on the ice, and you can speed it up, you can slow it down, and then you can essentially jump in if your team's losing and there's 5 minutes left. You can hop in and say, okay, all right, let's do this. Let's see if we can pull out the win, which is really cool. But even if you didn't want to touch the ice at all, you don't have to. So you can just simulate every game, see what's going on the ice, see all the stats, and then just move on to the next game. So you could blow through a season pretty quickly. Or, which one of the things that I like to do is try to play all E2, maybe skip one here or there once you lock in the playoffs. If you're doing both, you're spending a lot of time in this game. I'm glad they're adding that complexity, but it becomes a little much personally.
Yeah.
One of the other cool things that so that's kind of the main thing that they've done to be a GM. So it's one of my favorite modes. I'm gonna try it. I might end up spending more time in Hut. To whoever's asked the question earlier, I'll probably spend more time in Hut right away. We'll see how the player morale thing. Maybe I'll end up liking it, but to me, it's just something I don't want to deal with. So we'll move on to Be a Pro. So Be a Pro, I dove into a little bit of that. They brought a lot of the aspects back from Be a Pro that they had previously, where you can jump into the CHL. You can finally jump into the CHL and play through as a CHL player, play an entire season, and try to become one of the higher draft picks. So that's cool. I'm glad that they added that back in. They oh, sorry, just another note back on the GM. So they have the AHL in there now, and you can actually play the AHL games, which you couldn't do last year. So that's a welcome addition.
That's good. Yeah.
Talking about kind of the be a pro stuff made me remember that sort of thing. So, so that's good. So essentially in Be a Pro, you can be drafted, and then you're not going to necessarily start on the NHL squad. You might have to spend some time down the AHL. So,
I always like that better, because that just, again, when you're playing that career mode or that Be a Pro, you're looking for an RPG type of progression, and I think that gives it to you. I loved in NHL. I loved in the NCAA games when you started out in the high school, like the state tournament, and based on your performance, you know, where the school is going to recruit you. So I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So so I played a couple games in Be a Pro so far, and I picked a playmaker, I picked a center because that's where most of the action is. And so they have a new XP system where pretty much everything you do gives you XP. So if I'm, you know, I'm struggling at faceoffs right now, my guy's not good at faceoffs, so I'm losing a lot of those, and I'm actually losing XP because I'm not winning those faceoffs. I'm getting XP for a goal. Like I think it was like 100 XP for a goal that I got. It was like 50 some for an assist. I lost 10 XP for losing a faceoff, but I gained 25 XP for winning a faceoff. So pretty much everything you do on the ice, I think there's some for checks and, you know, steals and all that sort of thing. Everything you do on the ice is gaining XP. What I'm not clear on, and I'll spend some more time on it, is so like if you're doing things that are defensive, so let me back up. It doesn't look like you can control where you spend your XP. It looks like it auto assigns it. So I think this is how it works, is if you do things that are defensive on the ice, your defensive stats are going to increase. If you do things that are offensive, then your offensive stats are going to increase.
Okay, so it sounds like you gathered 250 XP points, and then you can go ahead and add them to whatever attributes you want.
Right, which is how they used to do it, which I actually enjoyed because, well, you want to make your player as fast as possible. I mean, speed is the key in hockey and most sports, but definitely in hockey. So I'd always dump as much as I could into speed right away. So maybe they've taken that away on purpose. I'm not exactly sure. So I'll need to spend more time with it to see if I really like that or not, where it's like, okay, because I'm body checking more, or say my guy's, you know, a big pussy on the ice, but so I'll have to go physically make him check in order to make him a tougher player, which is actually kind of interesting. It's a different way to go about it, but I you know, my first impression is I'd rather make him tougher so that he can withstand checks versus having to, you know, grind through the getting my ass kicked.
Yeah, you're simulating him training, and
right, exactly. So so that felt good. I liked kind of the XP, the visual cues that was popping up on the ice. It made me feel good. Oh, that was good. That's helping my player out. You can sim shifts this year, which is fantastic. The game that I played, a couple games I played, they take a little longer because it feels like they do throw you on the ice more often than they should. And of course they throw you on first line right away. So the first game took maybe 25, maybe a half hour. So it's a little longer than a regular game. But you're also, you should be aware that if you're playing, you know, most of the shifts on a 20 minute period. Those are kind of the big changes. I know that they have some goals. So I had some goals that the GM set, so I had to attain those. And if I didn't, you know, once you get into the NHL, this is what they've had in the past is, you know, you're going to get moved down to the AHL because you're not performing to the GM standards, that sort of thing. So it's good to have this mode back in more of the form that it was in the previous generation.
Yeah, that excites me. So that's good.
So yeah, that kind of wraps up what we're going to be talking about. I mean, there's a lot of changes, but there's still a lot that's the same. So we've kind of covered off on all the highlights that you're going to be, if you played last year's game, pretty much everything you can look forward to. There are a lot of changes to the new game. If you haven't played, so this is something we talked about. If you haven't played 15, you're actually going to be really happy with this game. It's going to feel really fresh, next generation. You get the live action Doc and Eddie. You're going to get a lot of what you're used to from the older games into this newer generation. So if you did take a break from 15, I think you're going to be pretty happy.
Yeah, and we said that in the outset of the show is a lot of people that we know or we talk to, and the general consensus was there was a lot of things stripped out of 15 for specific reasons, and a lot of people weren't happy about that, and they didn't pick up the copy. Maybe they've played it since, if they have EA access, which any smart sports gamer should get.
Sports
if you
gamer
can decipher what I just said. So, but I think you're right. A lot of people are going to be coming over to 16 fresh that haven't touched a hockey game in a while, or at least a few years.
Yep, absolutely.
And so all those little changes that they made to 15 will seem like a really big change. So,
yeah. So for me,
exciting.
I'm a hockey fan. I've been playing the game for a while. I've already pre-ordered. I'm buying it. I'm gonna enjoy it. It's not gonna be a 10 for me. It's not gonna be a 6 for me. It's gonna probably be somewhere in the middle. As a kind of a casual hockey guy, what's your initial take on it, Phil?
From what I've played so far, and it hasn't been much, and I'm going to play more. I'm going to use every bit of that 10 hours that I have. My decision will probably come based on that 10 hours, but at this point, I could say I probably will not pick it up until it comes to the vault on EA Access. And there's a couple reasons for that. It's not because the game is faulted in any way. It's very similar to 15. And again, being a casual hockey fan, I think 15 is enough. I don't know if I'm going to notice any of the other subtle changes as far as the arena stuff goes. Although that's very cool stuff, I just don't know that it's going to be enough. I have a 3-year-old like Colin. I'm a father and a husband, and the budget is tight, and there's just so many games coming out this fall that it's really tough to make these decisions. Like, which games am I going to get? However, I do have a birthday in November, so there's always that, and that might be on the list, depending on how this 10 hours goes. I do plan on picking up Forza 6 at some point, because I haven't dove into a racing game in such a long time. So at this point, it's a no, but the game does look very fresh. There's a lot of little incremental improvements that I think that'll really help this game sell.
Cool. Well, that wraps it up for our coverage of the game. Wanted to dive in. So Boxscore, if you're not a part of Boxscore, please join us on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/Boxscore. We've got a great group of sports gamers in there. We always ask a pregame poll before we do a show. And this week was no different. We asked, what's your favorite aspect of video game hockey and why? Is it the speed, the co-op modes, etc.? Co-op was kind of the resounding answer that everyone talked about, which is one of my favorite aspects of the hockey games. One of the reasons that if you're not familiar with hockey, you can still have fun with it because it's fun sitting down with your buddy playing against or with them in a game. So Derek Teague talks about co-op. Jesse White, same. Brandon Kramer loves taking the Avs to the Cup every year. So back to that, my GM or that season mode stuff, which, I mean, you can't argue with that. James, our special guest, James Dallow, loves his hut, loves his Ultimate Team. So he's been playing that. He's been addicted to that for the last couple of years, and I'm starting to get there with him. Corey Bayless loves the checking and fighting of hockey, which it's hard. I mean, they have fighting in there. They improved it in the last couple of seasons. They took away that first person fighting, which they used to have, which I thought was always kind of clunky. So they now pulled back, and so now you got a little third person fight. It doesn't feel as responsive as it should, but it's there if you wanna throw down. And then Ryan Hahn talks about the online play and the randomness, tension that you get when you're playing sports games. So it's playing online against some person on the other end is fun because you don't know, you're always feeling each other out right away, and you don't know how good they are, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, they're really good. I shouldn't be winning this game. Where no wonder I'm getting killed. Or you realize, hey, I should be able to take advantage of their skill level or their team on HUT. So yeah, thank you for everyone that participated. We also had a question from the group. Rory Wood, our good friend who joined us.
Rory Wood, what's up, Rory?
On the show. Talks about, he says he wants to know if everything really feels fresh as far as presentation goes. Does it look like they have redone everything, or are they using the same arena entrance, animations, edits, etc.? So Phil, you talked about presentation. Do you want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, it's hard because it's very similar to 15. I don't think it's the same, but it's very similar. Again, you kind of heard my standpoint on why I won't be picking it up. Unless I get a bonus or anything like that. I would like to, if I had the money, I would buy it. But if you're budgeting and you're concerned that, hey, is this different enough? I don't know that it is. The entrances, again, I've only played one game. I'm going to play through it again, all 10 hours, and then I'm going to give you my feedback in Boxscore community. So if I change my mind, you'll know it. But Rory, at this point, I'd say it's similar. It's not the same. They've tweaked some things, but it's very close.
Very cool. Yeah. They have added a layer. It's tough. It's back to the size of the development team. They can only do so much. So I remember one of the complaints that I read about the older games, the older generation, is they'd always do a cutaway of the backup goalie, just like kind of lounging on the bench, talking to somebody, and that carried through for so long. They must have added it and thought it was great. They just kept carrying it through. Whereas they have to do that in some level, but I think that they like the mascots is cool and the authentic chants is cool. So a lot of the stuff that it's not as not that it would last year's was stale, but it won't feel stale because they've added enough new to make that presentation feel unique to 16.
Yep.
Cool, guys. All right. Well, thanks for everybody that joined us in Twitch, man. This has been fun chatting with you guys and everybody that commented in Boxscore. I'm looking forward to 16 version. Phil's going to play it probably in a couple months once he gets it on EA Access, which, I can't blame anyone for doing that. Like I said, or like you said, it's just a smart, if you're a sports gamer, it's a smart decision. Spend that $30 a year and you're going to get every sports games you want. You're not going to get one, but you're going to get one. Yeah.
And again, they've been putting them in the vault, pretty quickly. And if they weren't doing that, if we're talking about waiting 9-10 months, then I'm probably going to buy it. But and we'll see. We got the holidays coming up. There's probably going to be some sales. So, again, I'll update the community after my 10 hours and let you know where I'm at. And if I'm playing, then you'll see me online because I got to get better. I'm going to play Colin a few more times and take an ass whooping and get better.
That's all right. I'll give you the tips. So thanks. So I'm Brokebox in the chat, by the way. And Philip just changed his Xbox gamer tag to
Chalupa Batman. Chalupa X Batman 0. The X and the 0 are just there because Chalupa Batman apparently is a very popular gamer tag. So
why don't you drop that in the chat too for anybody that wants to hit us up online. And
I'll check out eBay. Just win it.
That'll do it for the show. So we've done men, we've done hockey, we got soccer next.
Football.
NBA.
Football.
And then we might do a little wrestling and maybe some arcade titles that come out. So we got a busy fall, man. We're looking forward to it. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Phil, you got anything before we close?
No, you guys have been awesome. We got some really good response on Twitch today. Just keep it up. We love questions like this in the chat and also in the community. I can't express, and Colin can do the same thing. I can't express how much it helps us keep a show going and how much we can benefit from having you guys ask us questions. Because when we do this research, we're out there looking at all the stuff and we want to know what you guys want to hear, or else we're just going to be picking the things out that we think are important. So let us know, give us feedback. It just makes our job easier and we can give you guys a better show and give you more information.
Cool, guys. We'll see you next time.
Well, that wraps it up for this week's pregame. See you again next week, same time, same venue, and thank you for listening. Hey, sports fans, come be a part of our Boxscore Facebook community at facebook.com/groups/Boxscore.